there's a special topic that we are bringing in, and there's a special concept that we are bringing in, and which is called as women happiness. And this is a personal belief within Happier Beings. That's our initiative, which believe that at the fundamental level, if the women is happy, so shall be the family, so shall be the larger society. And of course, if the women at work is happy, it will create and add tremendously in boosting happiness at workplace for sustained levels and prolonged levels. We are seeing happiness from the point of view of personal productivity and professional productivity, and wherein we are pitching in with a sensitive yet important and fundamental topic of women happiness. We have been seeing women from the subject of equality or empowerment. And here is the time where we are throwing this concept where women should stand for their own happiness. And on screen, you see with me is Shikha Verma. She is joining us from Lucknow. And I will just take you to the profile and introduce Shikha. And shortly we'll hear from her. And Shikha has accepted this challenge of my triumph over my crisis. And I thank Shikha so much. And she is an important member of Happier Beings community, and she is leading Happier Beings Circle of Women Happiness. Shikha is a versatile, dynamic OD and learning and development professional with rich experience of close to 2 decades in top MNCs, namely Yamaha, Honda, and recently she was associated with Panasonic, taking care of their L&D and OD operations. She currently is associated with Happier Beings as Director, Women Happiness Circle, heading the Well-being and Happiness Women Circle. She is a passionate behavioral skill trainer and personality development expert with exemplary track record of training and developing diverse functional teams from frontline to top management. She is an HR thought leader and influencer on LinkedIn, who has been contributing on several platforms during this crisis, and has also been appointed as the State Council member of WICCIUP HR. We'll hear more about this from her, where she is dedicated to uplifting, enabling, and empowering women. And so happy to have Shikha today with us. And before I hand over this session to Shikha and we hear her experience, thoughts on building happiness circles for women, there's a very inspiring example coming in from India itself. And I'll just take a minute and then we'll hear Shikha. So I was asked by one great inspiring woman who is also a member of Happier Beings community. She asked me, do you know who is Maitri? And she then asked me, do you know who is Gargi? I said, Maitri was one friend of mine and Gargi is a college in Delhi. And then she said, no, they are Vidushis who contributed to Vedas. And Vedas are like 5,000 years of Indian scriptures holding nectar of wisdom. And those are the greatness of women, which is falling from thousands of years till now. We have seen great, exemplary, inspirational, unexampled stories of women making their mark. Either it is a freedom struggle or managing a political party or managing a company, coming out from a country like India, where women have stood up for her own self. She achieved not only empowerment, but expressed her own way of being here in her own style. Of lately, if I have to give an example, is the current Honorable Lieutenant Governor of Pondicherry, Puducherry, Kiran Bedi. In 1950, she stood up and said that she wanted to be a tennis player, and she crisscrossed all India. And that was the time when girls was People did not even imagine that you can let girl out, and she was going all alone and participating in tennis tournament, and she went on to win many championship. And then in 60s she established herself as the first women police officer, and those were the time when there was no facilities for women in a profession like police. And from here we brought a concept of moving from equality to originality, and made people realize something like me too. So we said me too for my happiness, and from where the women happiness module started for Happier Beings. And now I hand over to Shikha. She will be leading the women happiness circle for Happier Beings, and we will know from her side about how we can incorporate systematically, professionally, women happiness in organization, any corporate who is looking at this module from the perspective of enhancing their productivity and reducing their cost. A lot of research has come. Data are showing that if women are happy at your workplace, that will build to give you an edge over your market share, edge over your reducing the cost related with human capital, and an edge over having more engaged work environment, even in these circumstances, which is called as hybrid workplace. Over to you now, Shikha, and thank you so much for taking out time and mind share and being part of this happiness chain and taking up this challenge of my triumph over my challenge. And this, at this point in time, I invite you to bring this module to the people. Thank you so much, Shikha, for all your time. All yours.
Thank you, Puneet. Thanks a ton. I really want to thank Happier Beings for all their effort, and all thanks to you, Puneet, for roping me into a campaign like this, which is extremely pertinent and the call of the hour. Like you mentioned, I've been a part of a lot of organizations where I've built initiatives on identifying key focus areas. At the crux of it, invariably, irrespective of which industry I've been associated with, I did see the need of happiness for sure. So I think currently, one of the top things that I'm also working on is overall well-being, and happiness is something that breeds well-being. So every aspect that I'm currently committing myself to is kind of part of that bigger package of well-being. And honestly, for me, happiness is a lot different. Sometimes people tend to see it more like joy, and it's related to some achievements. So when I do this, I'll be happy. When I get a car, I'll be happy. That's got more to do with joy. It's not really happiness. Happiness is more stable. It's more long-lived. It's more like a memory, something that you build over the years, and you can always have access to it. So I really like what Amy Marina said. She said it's something to do with being in the present. It's about being in the now, and getting that joy in every moment is happiness. So if you're in that state of mind, something that you're able to cultivate over years of practice, trust me, there's nothing that can bog you down, because you're able to bounce back. So happiness breeds growth mind, something that we need for productivity in any organization. So like you just mentioned, companies have started to realize the worth of well-being or happiness, so to say. However, they don't understand the trajectory that they need to take for it. What is the structure? What is the system that they need to adopt? Thankfully, because of the statistics and the science behind happiness, there is a proper way to get there. And that is something the subject matter experts can handhold organizations on today. So there are several other organizations that are working on this. With Happier Beings, I know for a fact that we've gone back to Vedas and Upanishads and brought in the best from our history, which I think the world is opening up to now, and they're realizing how rich our heritage, our Indian culture is. So that is something that we should be seeking and pulling out from. I think one of the best sessions I've attended in I Am Indore was when they roped in a lot of examples from Mahabharata and Ramayana and a lot of mythological, linkages that they built. And I was quite surprised. So why didn't we look at these lessons during our management, days? Being a postgraduate MBA, I didn't come across these examples. I think it's important that we start, incorporating it. So that is something that I feel strongly for. And there's a small story that I came across a couple of months back. It's about price tag. Okay, so there's a little child who gets up in the morning and he's wondering what kind of a dream was this, because in his dream he sees that a Rolex watch is tagged at 50 paisa, and Lamborghini is priced at 1 rupee, and then he looks at this huge real estate property tagged at say 2 rupees, and he's quite surprised that why is he looking at these kind of price tags. And he wakes up, he tells his grandfather this story, and his grandfather happily tells him that I'm happy you saw this dream, because it's important for you to realize the worth of things that you and I have started to undervalue are the ones that are of highest value. So that is the real value that you've seen in the dream. What you should value is real conversations, real relationships, spending time with friend and family, and your good health. So we really need to drastically shift our focus on things that really matter to us. And thanks to this crisis, Puneet, I think all our senses have come back into place, and we've realized what is it that matters the most to us. We've gone back into our houses. We've started to treasure that quality time with family. We started to look after our health, the food that we eat, which we were so mindless about. So a lot of aspects that were taking a back seat, I think the crisis has brought them to the front seat, and we've started to realize the worth of investing in them. So that to me is extremely valuable.
Yeah. So Shikha, I mean, there are good things that you have brought about. I am Indore. An anecdote that you're telling, that why we should not be reading them in management. I haven't seen it. I want to bring in this. I was actually very surprised to understand that from 4 Vedas, Atharved is to do with human resource management. And we have in our community Dr. Aarti Dubey, who has done PhD for spending 8 years. And she says that I've gone through in the depths of Atharved, and it speaks about human resource management. So here we are dwelling about this important point of building up professional happiness for women. So may I ask you what if we want to put some meaning and understanding to happiness, because people have so many varied views and meaning that they want to relate to happiness. Some says that happiness is being on mountains. Happiness is I'm having a tea with my family, reading a book, no utensils to wash, homemaker coming back. And, happiness is when we'll be able to go back to our normal that we have understood our living that was there all this time. So, one must have some understanding of happiness, which one can relate with a sense of belief, so that they have a clarity when they are attempting to see and conduct themselves in their daily life, either it's a work life or professional life. So if I have to ask you, what does it mean to you when you say that, I'm happy? So, and when you answer, I would want viewers to see from this angle that you must have your own meaning of happiness, not that some leader has given a quote and you're seeing that and deciphering that meaning into yourself, but your own meaning, your own self, which you can relate with conviction and belief. So if I want to ask here, so what is that something which comes as a real core to you from your inner belief that this is what I mean from happiness?
So to me, Puneet, honestly, happiness has always been a state of mind. It's a choice I make every day. It's also about a sense of gratitude from inside for everything I have and the ability to change or to create something for myself. So when I'm able to advance towards my dream, even that one little step that I take, I'm happy. So it's not about accomplishment. It's not about the destination. It's not about monetarily whether I'm flourishing as much or not. It's about making the effort. So that ability to make the effort or to create something is what gives me immense satisfaction and joy and happiness. So like you said, it's my own definition, and I honestly feel when I am in rhythm of what I think, say, and do, I feel happy. If I believe in something and I'm not able to take action based on these things, I will have a broken space inside me, and that broken space is nothing but that unhappiness, which then breeds a lot of other emotions, which go into a vicious circle. So thanks to this COVID era, again, we've been talking about emotional fitness, emotional well-being, which is interrelated to happiness, because the foundation of happiness is mindfulness. And these are concepts that sometimes they look like jargons to us, but they're all holistically interwoven. When you talk about well-being, you ought to be mindful, which is being more in the present. You also need to be aware of your emotions, which is about emotional fitness. You need to be able to express yourself, have good conversations, and at the same time be able to look after yourself. So happiness needs to be looked at from a broader perspective. I think one big thing that people tend to miss out is their connection with their physical body. So if I'm unwell, no matter how much pep talk somebody gives me, there is no way I can be happy. Okay, and there's nothing that can make me happy at that point in time till the time I start to recuperate and start to recover from my illness or sickness. So that's where the importance of being mindful about your body and your health comes into picture. So most of the times, even in my organizations, I have found it really difficult to explain these aspects to them because they're all interrelated. It's like when you have a meal, you know fairly well that the pulse has its own role, and so does the salad, and so does the rice, right? Each item is placed in its plate, in the plate because it completes that nutrition. So similarly, when we are attempting women happiness, or you and I are talking about how organizations can approach the subject, it's important that they look at the entire kitty. They look at it from a holistic standpoint, and dwell into a mindfulness, loop in as much insights from our historical Vedas and Upanishads, the treasures that you have already at HappierBeings, and take it to the next level where we build a science around it. The structure is already available. So I'm going to share some of the insights as we move forward in this discussion.
Yeah, sure. So let's go there in terms of when you're pointing out that you want to share this. So if you want to go ahead, you can go ahead right away, and let's hear from you.
Yeah, so I'll take a minute before I share some slides with the audience. There's this very interesting... Yeah, there's this very interesting...
You were saying some story when I came in between to ask you about what does happiness mean. So please go ahead with the story.
Yeah, there's a small campaign that I came across recently, which was a Dove campaign. What they did was very interesting. They called a forensic artist, and that artist was supposed to draw individuals who he wouldn't see, and then ask a stranger also to describe that individual. So there were two paintings of the same individual. One was based on their self-narrative. The other was based on the stranger's narrative, who had met this person for the first time. Very interestingly, they then display these paintings in a hall, and each individual walks up to the paintings and wonders, how come the stranger's definition and description of their personality is better than their own description? Okay, now that brings out a very interesting fact, Puneet. We don't realize that we're really harsh with ourselves, and mostly people lack self-compassion or self-love. That to me brings out a very important aspect for women happiness. Though it was a beauty campaign and they wanted to bring out that you're beautiful and you need to see yourself from that angle and things like that. But the message that I'm trying to convey here is that everything that goes in your mind, everything you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, decides things that happen in your life or what you experience, right? So that's a very important aspect. And women, unfortunately, have been conditioned to do a lot of things as per other people's expectation. And therefore, they become critical of themselves, and they also start to berate their own self-esteem. So on that note, I'll share some insights with you. Just give me a second, okay? Yeah. So as you can see the quote on my slide, every woman is like the sun of the family. It's she who brings the light and hope in every single family member's heart each and every single day. You know, so I've always seen that in my life, and I'm sure you would agree that when your mom is happy, you know, when the lady in the house is happy, you can see that sense of happiness in the house, right? Every single heart is brimming with that same light. And that's where I think women happiness becomes even more important. So while we are talking about organizations and their productivity and how it contributes to the culture, I see this having a much bigger role in the spectrum, because it ultimately reaches out to the entire society, and every single person in the society needs to understand that the pillar on which the nation is running today is honestly not just the doctors or the people at the border, but also the women in the houses. So these are the other warriors that need to be recognized and need to be, fully done justice to. I see that smirk on your face, Puneet. But trust me, that's how strongly women are holding up uh, the banner. When I was put into lockdown and I started to wonder, I said, oh my God, the maid is not coming. So am I supposed to do all the chores? And that was the reality. So that was one part of the challenge. The second was that I just about lost my job. And that to me was one big setback for sure, but I didn't have time to think about it because I had too many chores to take care of. And then I had my daughter to look after her in terms of her education. So the challenges were umpteen. And with all the family members under one roof 24/7, month after month, uh, it was it was really a time of very close reflection. And I think a lot of people have gone through this during this lockdown phase. And that's the time when you really understand whatever you practice comes into, picture at that point in time. So I can quickly share another anecdote. That when you see high tides in your life, or anybody goes to the ocean, you see a high tide, what is your reaction? Some people would step back, right, because they're afraid of the high tide. But some people might just pick a surfing board and go on that high tide and enjoy because they know surfing. So I'm going back to my definition of happiness, that what makes me truly happy is my own ability to change that circumstance. And since we're talking about triumphing, this crisis, it was this ability only that kept me up and going. I was able to surf through that tide. Nothing has been easy, nothing still is easy, but I'm able to get my life condition at a different level because of that, rehearsal that I've been doing over years, or the practice that I've inculcated. So some of the points I'm going to share when we move forward. So it definitely is a state of mind, and it's more like a memory. You can have access to it, and it calls for practice. So sometimes people tend to think differently. I think it's also about the kind of experiences we are gathering in our life. So this story that you see on that slide right now, it's about the monk and his disciples. It's very interesting. This monk tells two of his prime disciples to go up a mountain peak and fetch some leaves for him. So, and he's very particular about how they need to get it. So they need to go to a certain pond, there's clear water, they need to fill a glass full of that clear water. And then there's another point from where the person will pick a flower, and then they finally reach the peak of the mountain, and from where they get that leaf. And they need to be back on time. So there's a specific time that the monk defines, and the disciples are both set and they kind of go on the mountain peak. Surprisingly, one of the disciples is all absorbed in the natural beauty, and he kind of experiences the sunlight. He looks at the clear water. He sits by the pond, enjoys that, sight for some time, then walks into the forest, enjoys the forest and the flowers, smells them, experiences them, and then goes to the top of the mountain and gets that leaf. So he's a little late for sure. He's not back on time, but he's fairly happy. So his sense of overall well-being, his experiences have been a lot different from the other disciple. Now, that brings out another very important point today, that people need to realize that everything you and I are experiencing are based on our own perspectives. How do you see life? What is your lens? What is your orientation? So that changes everything, and I've had a lot of conversation with my friends when, they're like, it's not so easy, it's easier said than done. And the only reason I find that difference is because of their orientation. Okay, so if I'm oriented only towards gaining wealth, that's the only thing that I attach happiness to. If I attach, if I'm orienting my life towards well-being, then I would orient it to a lot of other factors that come in my life under that well-being umbrella. So it's not just the finances, it will also be my health, it's also going to be relationship, my social connects, my sense of accomplishment from a job or whatever contribution I'm doing in the workspace. So a lot of other factors come into picture. So both set of people will have fairly different set of experiences, hence a very different outlook to happiness. So there is no thumb rule. Like you rightly said, each person has a very individualized way of looking at it, and which is fairly okay. We have a lot of popular people sharing a lot of inputs with us today, but honestly, I think the more customized we keep it, the more relatable it will be. So it's all right to think that it's an attitude. It's okay to think it's to do with their progress in life, because happiness certainly has different pillars. There are various other derivatives that can be defined as well, which I'll share in some time also. Let's go to another point here, which is one of my favorites, which is what we are talking about, that how is it that you sense happiness? How do you feel when you're happy? What are the things that what kind of emotions get generated? And here, I think the most important aspect is when you're happy, you're actually in that very moment, right? So sometimes because people see this related to a goal or an achievement, you think you're going to be happy when you get there. But it's actually about the action that you're doing to get there, which is also giving you happiness. So again, going back to my definition, it's not about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's more about the journey or the moment or the present. So for each one, it could be different, but we need to realize it's manifesting on a momentary basis as well. At the same time, I think happiness also comes out through our habits. What is it that you do on a daily basis? It's pretty unfortunate to see that more than 40-45% people are not able to do things that make them happy on a daily basis. And that, I think most of us will agree. In fact, there was this campaign that I heard where a child would go to old age homes and ask them, what is it that they regret the most? And most of them ended up saying that I didn't spend time doing things that I really wanted to. So I think happiness is a lot about doing those things on a daily basis and making that a part of your routine, making it a habit for yourself. I think habits have power of their own. They have a brain of their own. So they will ensure that you deliver it no matter what. So that's the interesting part of it. Sometimes I feel sorry when I come across some people who tend to live in the past too much. And there are also moments when there are people who are living in the future. So I'm going to talk about that. Before that, I want to build a little more insight on what are some sources of unhappiness, especially for women. There are a lot of expectations that women have from themselves, and there are also a lot of expectations that other people have from women. So we're struggling between both these ends. And I think there's this post that I've shared recently on LinkedIn where there's a rock and a person is lying under it. So you're pretty much dead because of that overburden of expectations on you. So it's important that you remove that rock and you start moving your life and letting go, those high expectations. Fulfilling some of it is okay, but trying to do all of it is next to impossible. So you will only end up draining yourself. These are the kind of different roles that we are fulfilling today as a woman, and it's not easy to strike a balance. So the identities that we relate to are several. While a male would be getting a lot of satisfaction from perhaps just their job satisfaction, or their sense of progress will come from their achievements. For a woman, that sense of balance and achievement comes from doing all these roles perfectly well. So I think most of the women struggle with perfection as a big hurdle there. So this picture, I think, says it all. Also, I think I've come across a lot of women in my life, my aunts, my friends, who find vulnerabilities as something they would want to hide, and they're very fearful of sharing that. So if they get angry, or if they're afraid of something, or if they're very lazy people, or if they're procrastinating, they would want to hide those aspects from other people. They don't want others to know. But one of the interesting activities which I did in my happiness certification, Puneet, actually led me to think that vulnerability is actually helping us connect better. It builds a very strong bond of trust, and it no way is detrimental in nature. It makes everyone comfortable in the room. So it was beautiful how each one of us started to open up the minute we realized our hooks were same, and we were like, oh my God, you are also lazy. So it was that sense of, happiness. And there was a huge crowd, who would say that I am temperamental. I get angry very easily. So I think each one was able to connect to this concept beautifully, that we need to let go of our guard. If you really want to be connected to people, build relationships based on trust, we need to let go of our guard. And this social connect is one of the strongest pillars for happiness. And that's why we're talking about it. So this is important for every single woman to realize. At the same time, I think another aspect which we don't realize is, what is our self-narration? How do you talk to yourself? What is it that you feel about yourself? This self-narrative goes a long way in building up your sense of well-being or happiness. So when we talk about mental health, we talk about emotional fitness, we definitely need to look back into our own, self-narrative. What is it that we talk to ourselves about? So do I think I'm not good enough? Do I think I lack on, 10 different things, and therefore I doubt my capabilities? Or am I able to compose myself, accept myself with all the flaws, and yet believe in my, potential to reach out and become limitless? So those are, all aspects that over a period of time we can inculcate and we can build on. So I think that's something that I have practiced personally. Operating from a space of abundance, like we say, gives you more, energies. So sometimes when you doubt yourself, that lack of self-belief puts you in a space of, limitation too much. And therefore, whatever you're trying to do, the results are limited as well. So I think that's one of the things that I've practiced, and I've seen the results very strongly as well. One of the quotes from my mentor, he says, "For my own sake, I will bloom strongly and enhance the scale of my own being." This is by Daisaku Ikeda. So this is, again, what I spoke to you about, that we are constantly, getting a million thoughts in our mind. But where is your focus? That decides the course of your action, and therefore your experiences will change. So I know my brother is extremely, materialistic, and therefore he would constantly just think about savings, money, his bills, what other work he can do to get more money, how's the economy going to bounce back. So those are the only elements that he would be building his thoughts on. Because of which, whatever's happening around in terms of the family time or the fun time or the daughter's birthday, there's very little that he's able to capture from there or experience, so to say. So like I shared that monk story, our experiences change because of our orientation. And here again, it's about the perception, it's about that orientation. There's nothing right or wrong here, honestly, but our experiences will change when you shift your experiences, the message that I'm trying to, mention here. In this slide, you can easily see a little more detail of the orientation aspect. So there are quite a few people who would be living more for today, providing for today. Then there are people who would live for tomorrow, which is, completely into future. When you're able to balance between the present and the future, that is the time when you live in a state of growth, which is this fourth quadrant. Avoidance is something that most of us do, whether we accept it or we don't. We tend to go in a phase where there are certain things we can see, but we don't want to accept it, and hence we put ourselves into a shell. So all these four phases are our reality for most of us. We need to choose where we're, or at least understand where we are operating from, and be conscious to transition from one zone to another. Sometimes you would be operating from all the zones, from moment to moment. But the larger section, something which will be more dominant, is something you can realize for yourself. So there ought to be some amount of self-realization there. When I did this exercise, honestly, Puneet, I realized that most of the people in my group were operating from anxiety or avoidance. I couldn't quite understand it, but when they started sharing the experiences, how fearful they were, how anxious they were, how life has been unfair with them, how they were petrified of, various things in their life, I could realize why there is this certain phase of, or a certain approach which has become a predominant approach from them. So it's okay, for each one. I think our life's experience also dominate our choices. But at this moment, if you decide to do something about it, you can make that progress. You can move to a different phase. You can make life better. You can change your perception, and hence your experiences and how you, experience happiness too. So those are tactical aspects, and they can be dealt with as well. Would you like to state something?
Yeah, I'm enjoying, Shikha. Go ahead, please.
No, I think I want to hear you now.
So that's very interesting to hear in terms of the piece on people who are coming out, and you are able to find that either they are on the moments of being anxious, or they are having an experience of avoidance. Now, so this is an important thing, because normally what happens is fight and flight mode, we don't realize it. This creates huge amount of catastrophic things in one's mind, and we don't realize actually. So when you say being in present, or when you say being aligned with the flow, or being more mindful, or being more aware, understanding your own self and emotions, now these are nothing but simplistically being away from avoidance and being away from fight. And what happens is, I mean, these technical terms, if I have to put it, the cortisol comes into picture. So moment you are avoiding, there is a sense of fear, and moment you are fighting, you have a sense of, getting more yourself into heading yourself against something. So these are the things which will alert you. Avoidance will also alert you. It will have the same effect as fighting. And once cortisol sets in, it will only do a simple thing is it will cut off your supplies to your part of brain which is responsible with intelligence, and it will supply most of the brain to the muscles. And in these times, unlike earlier times, what fight and flight would do is will make you run. and you will be able to balance your cortisol. Now here you can't run, you have to be there. And it is thus very important to come out from this and let things which is happening, either it is in your control or it is not in your control, be with it, accept that. And as people say, I'm practicing gratefulness. So from here it comes that you get a sense of empowerment, you get a sense of control, you get your emotions in your own stride, and you are able to then see things as what is existing in reality, not from the terms of fighting, which is your some desires, or flighting, which is something that you don't want. So either you say being anxious, looking about what is going to happen in the future, or either you say that, you know, I'm in avoidance. So either of these things, whatever word you want to put, is plain and simplistically this, that you're not attaching and you're not that open in your mind and heart to be with the flow, to be with what is happening. From there comes your power to control things or respond back to things if you just cannot control. So either you control or you respond. So these are the two things which will make you at peace and bring that calmness back to you. Maybe not in that point in time, but sometimes ahead of you. But more you are aware of what I have to do, more you are very clear what that particular time your identity is. Like, for example, if I have to say in terms of women, if child is speaking to women and she is in a mode of work, now that is a two identities coming. One is professional, another is being a mom. So you need to separate your identities. That will also give you a control. Now, a famous example of Indra Nooyi, which she has expressed, that when she was declared chairman of PepsiCo and she walked back her home and she was so happy, and you know, she had that letter with her and she wanted to share that letter with the family, and you know, and her mother in at at the home, when she faced her,
Entered, yeah.
he said, okay, we don't have milk at home, you know, you go and get milk for house. She said, hey, come on, you know, I have just come from office, there's a good news that I want to share. I've been declared as chairman of the company. She said, okay, that will be at your office, not at home. So she goes back, get the milk and get the tea done, and then she says that, you know, you can't have it all. And that's not for women, that's for everyone. You can't have it all. So you can't, you know, you need to accept this, and that's how the flow will come. That's how you'll avoid being in the avoidance zones. You need to avoid being in avoidance zone. You need to avoid being anxious. That's how it will come. You need to accept. We can't have it all. And I was so enjoying to hear you, Shikha. You asked me to come in, but
No,
yeah,
it's important.
you please go ahead if you want to. And I'm so happy to see that these four quadrants which you have made, uh, depicting upon the day-to-day, being in present and being in future. So that's the theme of a professional happiness, that you need to be very clear that where you are going, where you are heading, that's the futuristic thing. Yet you need to be perfectly aligned with your present. That's where the growth mindset comes, that where you are aligned and you are clear and you are destined, and you don't have any issues, that you know that this is what I don't want to do, this is what I want to do, and you have a belief in conducting your day-to-day engagements, day-to-day personal the stuff at home, day-to-day professional stuff when you are engaging with the people. And you are more aware and you are more calm in your mind. You are quite strong in your heart. uh, that's the beauty. So that's so happy to see this.
So,
uh,
so I just add one thing. It
yeah, go
brings
ahead.
me to a very important point as to why we're talking about women happiness today, Puneet. It's pretty sad that over last 3 decades, women happiness has gone into a huge dip. Apparently, women happiness has seen a huge dip over last 3 decades. From 1970s, we have transitioned into a space where we worked on getting women better opportunities, better pay. There's more to be done outside the house. There's more support inside. but still their happiness levels have gone down. There was a time from a gender comparison, women were supposed to be happier people, happier gender. But over last decade alone, that has drastically dipped. And the reason is not surprising, because I think we need to realize that overall mental health has also gone down. There are 4.2 crore Indians today who are suffering with depression. Depression has been announced by WHO as one big pandemic in itself. So we need to understand what we're dealing with today. And women are no exception. So that's why I think it's important that we realize how important it is to focus on happiness at workspaces as well. Because these are the women who are already struggling with a lot back home, lot to do with their own individuality, their ambitions and dreams, and matching up to expectations of the people around them and themselves, and at the same time grappling with the circumstances in the office. The the biggest aspect that comes out here is the paradox that we're living in, and I love what Simon Sinek just recently mentioned. We're all living in a paradox as human beings. So we're all individual, we're also a part of a group. And sometimes it's really hard for you to juggle between the needs, or which thing you need to prioritize first. Is it your individual need, or is it the team's need? So do I look after the family first, or do I look after my dreams or what I want to accomplish in my life? And it's fairly impossible for anyone to do it. So even Simon Sinek says it's not binary, and there is no one answer to that. So you need to realize that in these complexities, when a woman is grappling so much and the canvas has evolved and she is far more aware, she's actually far more aware of her own limitations also. So therefore the happiness index is not going up. Okay, with a lot of increase of opportunities outside, there are a lot of hassles and harassment that she's also facing because of that. Right? So we can't compare the situation of 1970s with today and say we've not progressed. Even when it comes to gender equality and subjects like that, I know Bill and Melinda Gates has mentioned, a century to go to achieve that target. But the fact of the matter remains that the canvas has changed. The context has evolved. Our parameters have changed. Earlier, women would be happy if she had a good, happy family, if her husband was earning well. Today, if you ask a woman, she's happy because her husband is earning well, her answer would be, why will I be happy? She would be happy when she is able to contribute in any way. And if she has a value that she's contributing to the society or to any organization. So her parameter or her lens has drastically shifted, because A, she's more educated, she has also equipped herself with capabilities, she's also more outgoing and vocal as compared to women in 1970s. So all of that brings more emphasis to the fact that women happiness needs to be looked into from a very different perspective today. How we define happiness for women as a caretaker is different from how you need to define happiness for a woman of 21st century, because this is a dawn of a new woman. She has different aspirations, she has different requirements, she has different set of challenges. So I think it's important we don't overlook that, and by sticking to old definition or a traditional perspective. That's very, very important. Moreover, I also feel that women happiness has seen a decline because of our own expectations from ourselves. So we are not self-compassionate. We don't accept flaws, and therefore our overall sense of well-being gets affected. So I'd like to share a tip for all the women that you need to start giving yourself 8 out of a 10 and tell yourself you're perfect. So 8 is the new 10. That's the mantra that you need to rehearse in your head over and over. Because trying to be a 10 in all those different roles that I just shared is next to impossible for any human being. So we need to keep ourselves 2 notches below from the kind of throttle that we're living in, and also have a sense of prioritization, which can help you to become more at peace with your circumstances. So day in and day out, I've seen my mother-in-law struggling with, meeting ends or taking care of the chores and doing everything to perfection. Something or the other gets left out. That gives them that sense of discomfort. I think it's important that we stop being perfectionists and stop comparing ourselves. It's something that is well said, that if you compare, you're actually killing your level of happiness day in and day out. So those are a few other aspects that I think a woman needs to focus on. Lack of self-love and compassion for me tops the rank when it comes to building women happiness. So I think, like you rightly said, women happiness is important, and why it's important is something that I just mentioned. The challenges are very, very different. The times are very, very different, and therefore the treatment has to be different.
Putting on the perspective of why women happiness is important. So we were doing sessions with women who were in the central place in their organization, maybe in the place where they can influence things, or they are in a leadership role, specifically with HR, taking care of all these engagement cultures, people, values on that segment, and also from other walks of life. And this was precisely on this campaign that we were doing when we realized, Me Too was breaking out, and there was a lot of harassments which were 5 years, 6 years old, and women was making that use of putting in front that, now I don't want to tolerate. Now enough is enough, and I will bring up, even if it is 3, 4, 5 years old, things needs to set right. And we were thinking, from this side, that this is about a fight. So, and then there's another incident broke, which was the World Economic Forum, when they, forecasted that in society as advanced as US, for women equality to achieve neutrality, it will take another 100 years. And I just happened to see through LinkedIn where, Bill Gates making fun of that, what you're going to do for these 100 years. You need to do something which has to be done now. And I was discussing with someone, and they said that, if in US it is 100 years, forget about India, it will take another 400 years. And luckily we were having such conversation. And then I realized, history is not saying this. History is saying something completely different. And there are examples, even in present, when I was speaking to a teacher, and she happens to be a great yoga practitioner, and she teaches Sahaj yoga. And she says that, wherever women has stood up, not only they have achieved equality, but they have achieved what they wanted to be.
Yeah.
So the whole thing then shifted. Then we said, let's leave this equality thing and let's go to originality. So we said, me too for my happiness, moving from equality to originality. So in many ways, that's the crux. And we found so many examples where women said that when we started to feel our own originality, feel our own self, we had come out being more peaceful, being more enriched, having more experience of joy in our relationship, and empowerment at our work. And one research, if I have to put to you, and that everyone should look at, Betsy Stevenson studied data of 30 years, 3 decades, and this encompasses decades of 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, these are the 3 decades in which the maximum empowerment of women happened, sort of a revolution happened, where women came out asking for voting rights, they came out asking for equal social rights, they came out asking for, their position and education, empowerment, financial well-being, and societal role. and a lot of things changed across the countries, across the cultures. But what she is telling, that in last decade, there was data which was showing that happiness of women has gone down completely. And the one reason, there were 2-3 reasons, but the one reason which is very important was, as you were trying to put, and it is something which can be relatable and can be experienced with all the women, was on expectations. There are many expectations being set when women is going out for work and being at home to look in this manner or that manner. And that brought us to a simple conclusion. Boss, let's say about having, practicing, seeing, preaching, and just see your own self as what you want to be. Just see your own originality. So wherever there are examples of people, not only women, but everyone, being allowed to be what they are, being allowed to do what they want to do, and being original. And that's how, that's the fastest thing that can solve, and that's the prolonged or sustained solution, which can be, to my mind and to our belief. And that's how, at HappierBeings, we thought, why not to have this as a module in a structured way, in a systematic way, and talk about women happiness. And if we are speaking about women happiness, not only it gives an option to have an enriched experience at home for women, but it will help the family, but also professionally.
Yes.
So research is saying where, 50% of the women drops from middle to senior level. I mean, this is research from a respected organization like Gallup. And then on the other side, research says that when you make your work environment friendly for women, you are increasing your market share by 75%. Now, it makes business sense also. This is not something we are talking from the point of view of something like social cause or something like rights, but it makes commercial sense, business sense for an organization who looks like this domain like a checkbox event. No, it will make business sense for you. So look at from that angle, because for a business organization, for policymakers and for leadership, to them, it's all about numbers. So yeah, you benefit your numbers, you enhance your productivity, you reduce your cost related with human capital. Make your women happy, make people happy, make women happy. And women happiness is little different. So where in Shika, you are coming in and placing that side and filling that role. So if we have to decipher this element, how women have happiness is different. So you bring your thoughts in at this point in time, and we'll want to hear from you on this.
So largely, I think you shared a lot of very relevant statistics there, Puneet. I think women are socially, psychologically, biologically, extremely differently configured, and our requirements and needs are very, very different. We experience life from a very different lens. And therefore, the challenges that a woman would go through is also different. So it is, again, a research fact that a woman experiences 2 times more depression than men do, right? But at the same time, their ability to experience intense joy and happiness is also double. So if I'm experiencing joy and happiness, that kind of compensates for depression. But the depression numbers have grown manifold. There are 4.2 crore Indians today, like I said, who have mental health issues. That's a huge population that we need to cater to. And having said that, going back to your numbers, I think there's another statistics that I recently went through on LinkedIn, where Whole Brain Consulting, as a part of their Mind Celebration, I did some research. Over 4,000 employees, and they found out that more than 50% population is waking up tired in the morning, right? Or 54% of them are not able to focus well. their ability to concentrate has deteriorated drastically. So these are all symptoms and signs for us to realize that, women definitely are a part of this population of the service that we're talking about. So we're all struggling with a lot of other odds that didn't exist earlier, right? So if you talk about women happiness, why it needs to be treated differently, it's because our fair share of challenges are also different. Our ability to focus has gone down because of trying to do too much at all the time. Lack of sleep is another factor why I think our energies are depleted. So I think while for a man's happiness at workplace, certain other challenges or giving more challenging tasks would work better. It would work for a woman too, but at the same time we need to take certain concrete steps uh, to contribute towards women happiness by making certain policies that will be more supportive, certain initiatives that can help her on things like parenting, certain other insights that can help her get more connection with herself, being more aware, accepting herself as an original individual, like you mentioned. So connecting to that identity, and things like that. So there are several other things that can be done considering those unique set of requirements and challenges that a woman is going through. So I think all of us have tried our hands on this, and I love what Thich Nhat Hanh said. He said, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. So, that is something that organizations need to start to realize, that culture is not an option. Culture is the way. And during this crisis, we've all seen how, individuals have grappled with the situation, and the only organizations who've been able to do well are the ones who've been empathetic towards employees, the ones who've actually been focused on taking care of their people. Because people make businesses, it's not the other way around. So Bill Gates has also strongly endorsed this, that if you're chucking out people, you don't realize what business is all about. It's all about your people, and those are the ones who are driving your organization. So focusing on them, being empathetic, or building around their well-being, focusing on women happiness, like you said, it takes the matrices 75% above the present situation. Those are facts and figures, they won't lie. So it's a foolproof system. I think anybody can adopt it. There are tools, there are structures, there is proper science behind it to guide organizations and individuals to get on that path. So I have personally seen myself do good when I followed my heart. So I love what Richard Branson says. He says there is no greater thing you can do with your life and your work other than following your own passion. And in a way that serves the way you're able to serve not just yourself but also the world. So that is something I've done. During this lockdown, I realized that I had nowhere else to go. So this is something I started doing, avidly reaching out to people like you, becoming part of different communities, seeing whichever other way I can add more meaning to my life, and reaching out to more and more people to help them. So I think women happiness is a lot, has for a very long time been very dependent on other people. I think it's time that women start to realize it's in their own hand, and it's all in their mind. So we need to start training and conditioning ourselves for doing a lot more and becoming original, like you said.
Absolutely. So there is one interesting thing, we'll come to your experience, specifically the chain that we are trying to build, and people who can relate to hearing first-hand experience on as an example, as an inspiration, as a motivation to look at, triumphing the challenges in these times. So this is what we are doing across geographies. We are bringing in the stories there. So before we go there, Mishika, there's one important thing. A lot of news are, throwing these headlines that where there are women leaders in countries, COVID has been dealt in a better form So one is this. And the second data point is people are not talking about what is called as CEO in different perspective altogether, where they say that CEO is Chief Empathy Officer. LinkedIn specifically is bringing this concept, influence from Dalai Lama on being practicing compassion. Now, in business terms, I haven't heard these terms before. I haven't heard these concepts before. And if you see from the angle of COVID world, which I call this times as COVID world, the huge challenge which has broken is on women. And either when they are at home, in lockdown, so one side is work. If it is not work, then that is work at home. And as what is coming out from data, violence, household violence have increased against women. And all the data points are saying that, depression, stress, anger, irritation, frustration is all-time high. And the vulnerability of women in these times are much more than it was before. And how do you want to, then see in terms of solving things? If you don't have a good experience of living, what does that living means? Even if you have some good status, you need to be free from stress and you need to have a right experience of life. And once you have the right experience of life, research says that when you are happy, you do more with less, you are more productive. Either it is on personal side or it is also on professional side. So it does bring to our this conclusion that you look at happiness as a fundamental. Building that will solve a lot of issues. So a stressed mind may not be able to attempt and solve the problems and challenges, but a happy mind, when you are working towards that, you will be able to come out, you will be able to challenge the challenges which you are facing and turn around things. And the most important point at this point where we are in COVID crisis is turning around things, is triumphing over your challenges. And happiness becomes an important tool. If you do it systematically, if you do it or in an organized manner, then your whole experience of either working or living will be much more joyous. You will be able to have many things changed from that simple thing. If this is right, everything else starts to fall right. So it's my personal belief, it's my personal suggestion and advice as well. Whosoever want to look at solving the challenges or triumphing the challenges, look at first of all to make your heart and mind happy. And it's easy, though you may not be able to relate to it if you are in a little in the early stage of journey towards happiness. But if you are in an advanced state of journey of happiness, you'll be able to relate it much easier. It's very simple to do it. Keeping your mind happy, keeping your heart happy is much simple and it's transformational. So one is this. And let's come to...
I so want to come in here and share
please
something.
Come in.
Since you mentioned it is easy, yes, but I honestly want to bring out another end of the spectrum where I feel a lot of people have started to live in fear. And Puneet, you and I know that Corona time has been something that has actually put most of our people into that mindset where you're superbly worried about everything in your life, about not just the work, not just the income, but your relationship, your future, all of that put together. And then the fear of getting infected and the fear of dying, obviously. So there's too much happening in the head right now when it comes to this particular phase, so to say. And therefore, being happy is not something that will come to you naturally, unless you've been practicing it before this era. So my humble request to people at this point in time is also to realize how to fight that fear. Like you rightly said, you would either go into a fight mode or a flight mode. My personal take on that is adopt something that gives you energy spiritually. So faith is something that has always helped any individual to cope with fear beautifully, and only a courageous mind can be happy. You know, you can't have a weak and a meek mind or a fearful mind and then manifest happiness. It can't happen. It's mutually exclusive, right? So it's important that we understand the importance of faith-based life or faith-based action, and then day in and day out, tenacious efforts, end up giving you a lot more conviction in life. So I've seen a lot of people being unhappy because they've not been convinced. You know, they've not had clarity in their life. But the minute you do, which only comes through practice and your day in and day out efforts and your courageous, spirit, you're able to get that sense of well-being also. I have done that for myself, Puneet, and I know for a fact that it's not easy. So my thing on COVID has been possible, or anything that I've been able to contribute during these 7-8 months has been only because of what I was doing before it. So it's rightly said, you know, when your roots are really strong, no matter how strong the wind comes, you don't get uprooted. The tree, you know, those roots help you to hold on and sustain during those tough times. And that's what you and I call resilience. So it's important that we inculcate these things as a part of our practice and do it on a daily basis. So those are two perspectives that I wanted to bring out: how to fight fear through faith, and how it is important to have a courageous spirit without which you can't experience happiness.
Yeah, so let's bring this point in. Wonderful, and I thank you so much for touching this point and bringing an importance to this element of fear. Now, 2-3 things which is rising up is anxiety, fear, and now what you do. Now, it's as simple as that. Now, I've seen in my personal experience. Now, here we are going through this example of my triumph over my challenge. From my personal experience, if I have to share, I've seen life loss around myself. People whom I'm speaking, and the next morning they're not there.
Oh dear.
Right? So, and if you see these data, thousands of people are losing life in a day, and that's not specific to one place. It's all across. And for the first time, this generation would have seen death so closely. The fear of surviving in such a big format, and everyone is forced sort of to experience this. Now, what do? You can't. You can only keep yourself safe by understanding that these are the protocols to keep myself safe. At the best, you can do that to your best. But these are the time you have to accept, which people have just forgotten to accept, that you yourself is not here for all the time. We are perishable.
Yeah.
We don't have time. We may have everything in this world to get whatever you think you can work towards it, and you will be able to get it. You have all the options available. If you can't get it, there is many reasons for that, but you have all the options to work towards it. But one option one doesn't have is time, and we need to accept this. And that's the fact and reality, which if people understand that you don't have time here, your whole engagement towards living, your whole engagement towards your relationship with people and to yourself changes completely. It changed for me.
Yeah.
Completely changed for me. I became, and I started to practice gratefulness. And all of the time which was in my mind, when you switch on TV, you are seeing everything which is to do with, hypersensitive information, which is just bombarded at our side,
Disturbing, yeah.
disturbing, completely disturbing. You read newspapers, completely disturbing. You speak to our family members, all scared. Neighbors, all scared. Colleagues, all scared. So what do you do? So I started for the first time to understand, hey man, what I have with me, what I have right now, I need to appreciate that. I need to be grateful for that. Now, once I started practicing gratefulness, I started to be more in in
Peace.
in command of my thoughts, in more compassionate for myself and to the people around. So that's one way of engaging as far as I am concerned. So there will be many ways where people are forced. This is a great thing again. People are forced to see how they can go away from this fear and accept what is happening with them. So that's a law of the nature. A law of nature is it will push you towards normalcy. It will push you towards, if I have to say, happiness. Now, happiness is a law of nature. Now, whatever happens with you, whatever bad happens with you, after some time, you come back to your own original levels of emotions. Now,
Yeah.
that's the law. You need to be grateful for that. So these are small things which I experience, and it helped me a lot in terms of having a enriched, meaningful, empowered, what makes one happier. So whatever state of emotions you are, just move one little step ahead than that. You can't be happy all the time. People say accept, but if you practice well, you can be happy all the time. But if you want to go by that statement, you can't be happy all the time, go by that. But then you can be happier all the time. Now that's one simple thing that you can do. So now let's hear your side of the story, Shika, if you have to put forth from your side about your triumph over your challenge, so that people at other side can also look at leaning towards this, look at believing that yes, it is possible. If she can, I can. If he can, I can. Something of that sort. Thank you so much, Shika.
Wow. So I think there have been a lot of examples around me during this
Wonderful.
COVID time.
Lot of examples. May I clap you for that? May I clap you for that? Now, this is the power of positivity.
Yeah, honestly, because I didn't even have a day to think about what should I do. The first instinct that I had, after losing my job, and simultaneously the corona time came, and simultaneously all the challenges came up. So it was one after the other. And when you're bombarded, the thing that comes into play is your muscle memory. Something that you have rehearsed over years of your living. And that's exactly what happened. The first instinct was to reach out to as many people as possible and do everything I could, the skills I possessed, and contribute to for a bigger cause, for a larger audience. So that brought me to LinkedIn platform. That brought me to do a lot of things that I wasn't doing earlier. I was fairly new to the platform, fairly new to the community and to digital learning for that matter. But I didn't stop even for a day. I didn't even fret about it, whether I can do or cannot do, because I started with the thought of I can and I will. So every thought that I would manifest turned into some action which got me some results. And day in and day out, I think I was able to make that progress, which consistently was able to give me that sense of well-being, which you and I are talking in terms of happiness. So I think my triumph over my challenge was simple as that, that discipline that I was able to inculcate, or the disciplined actions that I was able to take day in and day out, and the openness that I would try, I would do, and I can, allowed me to venture into new territories, unlearn, relearn new skills, reach out and connect with more and more people. It allowed me to go on social media platforms and share my knowledge, or through my experiences, and what I believed in. Happiness and well-being. So these are all aspects that came into play because of that muscle memory, because of that practice, like I said. And I would repeat that habits have a brain of their own. So what is important is to build a happy habit, is to build happy circles, to have investment in yourself and know what makes you happy. So I totally understand that people have different perspectives towards happiness and may prioritize different things in life, which is all right. But are you investing in that space? Are you able to see progress in those areas. If you're doing that, you will have a sense of happiness ultimately for yourself. So my message to all women today is that you need to constantly find out who you're spending time with. Are those people breaking your confidence, creating self-doubt, or are those people motivating you and making you believe in your unlimited potential? So happy circle is a must-have. Investing in happy habits is a must-have. And also at the same time, you should know how to challenge and push yourself to do newer things or venture into newer territories. I think that allows you to expand your horizon and experience life. The more I've reached out to people, the more I have learned and the more I have grown as a person. So those are some tips that I can share. Other than that, one of the things I mentioned earlier about accepting physical connection is also very, very important. So women, while they're doing a lot of work, doing all the chores, meeting all the responsibilities, they tend to overlook their health, and also overlook what they eat. So I think that's very, very important that they start to be mindful of that and mindful of their own health and fitness as well. Yeah, I think ultimately, Puneet, the incongruence that an individual is living in actually results in unhappiness. So most of the women are living in that state of incongruence where what they want, maybe their qualification background was good, but they're dedicated to take care of the people in the house and things like that. So I've seen my mother go through that. She was a qualified lawyer and she could look after the house and 4 kids. So there was a constant state of unhappiness for her because she thought she could do as much. And most of the people today, I think women experience unhappiness because of that state of incongruence. So if they want to be financially independent and they've not been able to contribute in that space, they will experience unhappiness eventually. So it's important to create more congruence in life, to say, do what you think and believe in, makes a whole lot of difference, and that allows you to get that overall sense of synergy and peace. So that's important to sustain happiness in your life. So everyday efforts count for sure. If we think they don't matter, today we've not done it, it's all right. That's not really true. I think every single day counts. Every day's energies count. So it's important that we start giving the due importance and make little efforts to progress towards congruency for our own happiness and our own sanity.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much, Shikha. We have spent about 1.5 hours speaking about this topic of women happiness. The topic is such that you don't realize how much time we have spent talking. There are many things to talk, but yes, there has to be a wrap. And for now, let's do the protocol call that we do to people that, the best thing that you can do in this times is to keep you happy, because that's the gift that you can give to your people and people around you. And if you can keep you happy, then world will become happy. So we have made this tag called as Happier Me, Happier World. And let's stand victorious with this 2 finger signs and let's give it a call, and which goes as Happier Me, Happier World.
Happier me, happier world.
And to the viewers who are watching out there, a plain and simple message. Keep yourself in a joyous state of affairs. Come what may, be grateful. And that's the simplest and shortest way to be happy in life. Thank you so much for giving your time to us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shikha. Thank you so much for all your time.